everyone, and welcome to this edition of FTT Chats. I'm Lisa Moyle, Director of Strategy at VC Innovations. And today in our hot seat, we're delighted to be joined by Bijan Mehta. Bijan is Global Head of Financial Services with Twilio. Hello, Bijan.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you today.
Yeah, great to have you. I wonder, Bijan, if we could start with you telling us a little bit about your role and Twilio.
Sure, absolutely. Let me start with Twilio. We're a 14-year-old company, publicly listed. We went IPO about 4 years ago. Our focus as a company is basically to create the world's leading customer engagement platform, and in so doing, help people create differentiated experiences in a quick, efficient manner at scale. And the core part of our offering is we've created an API layer that sits on top of a global network of over 3,500 telecommunication company relationships, telcos. And what we've effectively done is we've abstracted all of the complexity of leveraging forms of communications like SMS, voice, right? So your typical phone calls, video, chat, and we've created APIs. So now if you're a company, you could be an e-commerce company, you can be a financial services company, you can be a hospitality company, and let's say you want to offer SMS across 40 countries to all of your customers. You no longer have to have this in-house expertise on, oh my goodness, how am I going to reach out to 40 countries and at least 2 to 3 telcos in each of those 40 countries, and then create the connectivity layer to then offer SMS in all of these countries. We simply provide you a list of capabilities and countries that we operate in, and we operate in over 100 countries, and customers can then choose what capabilities they wish to develop, and then we provide those APIs to that company's developers. Our APIs are now used by over 9 million. It's getting close to 10 million developers worldwide. So we feel we've got a really strong customer base, and it all starts with developers. Now, in terms of my role, I am part of a relatively new initiative within the company, which is to verticalize our go-to-market strategy. What we realized about midpoint of 2019 is that we as a company were on our way to over $1 billion in revenue as of the end of last year. And we felt if we're going to keep that growth going, we're going to need to dig deeper into certain key industry verticals. Financial services is one of them. Healthcare is another, public sector, retailing. And the idea is that each industry vertical has a global lead, such as myself, and our task is to define what is our go-to-market strategy, what are the problems we can solve within our industry, and then really work across our direct sales channel, our ISV partner channel, as well as our GSI consulting channel to help explain those use cases where we can drive value to customers. And so effectively, I spend a great deal of my time talking to customers, prospects in the industry. And for us, financial services is, banking, it's wealth management, it's insurance, it's asset management, it's payments, as well as sort of a broad category just called financial technology, which includes, fintech startups as well.
Great. That was a great overview. Thank you, Bijan. And picking up on some of what you said there, can you give us a few examples of some of the benefits that a company could get from leveraging a platform like Twilio?
Sure. So, when we started off as a company, there were 2 key use cases that I think most people knew Twilio for. First and foremost was the ability for companies to integrate Twilio SMS APIs. So now if you're, a challenger bank and you want to send alerts and notifications to your customer, right? Twilio can help that challenger bank set up that capability very quickly, right? And it kind of goes back to one of our core propositions, which is, we want to help people build things in a quick manner, but also at scale. So that's one sort of very, standard use case. If you are, the example I share with a lot of people, amongst my friends is, when you get a text message from Uber and Lyft, that is Twilio powering that text message, right? Let's say, for example, you're trying to find your driver and you make a phone call to the driver. That phone call that's made from your phone to the driver or back, vice versa, the driver calling you, that's all powered by Twilio. And we do it in a way that masks your personal phone number as well as the driver's personal phone number. So you think you see that number calling into the driver, but it's actually not their personal number. And similarly, we help companies to ensure that they're not sharing their customers' private information. That's another use case. And I would say the third use case that most people know us for, certainly in financial services, is two-factor authentication. So, when you get a link and you're signing up for some new challenger bank account or traditional bank account, often you'll get a 6-digit code that will say, please, plug in these 6 digits. That capability is often powered by Twilio as well.
Those are some great examples, especially because as an end user, they're so ubiquitous, you don't even think about them, right? And you don't even think about, the fact that your personal information is being protected, for example, when you use the example of Uber announcing, that they're drivers here. So those are some really interesting examples. And picking up on what you said about that problem-solving approach, for financial services, fintechs, right across the board. What are some, thinking about financial services in particular, what are some of the problems that you're solving for them? I mean, obviously you mentioned two-factor authentication, but, thinking around, drilling a little deeper into that vertical.
Well, I think our current, world situation of the COVID pandemic is a sort of useful starting point. So, after the pandemic hit in kind of mid-March, when everyone was working from home, it really took a lot of financial services firms by surprise because, quite frankly, as an industry, I don't think anyone gamed out a scenario where over 90% of their employee population would be working remote. Now, once that happened, it now represents some challenges. How do you allow an employee who primarily dealt externally with customers to communicate with those clients in a compliant way, such that you can monitor those communications? And, typically when you were in the office, employees were told, do not conduct business on your phone, because most firms have a BYOD policy on your own device. But, you couldn't text and you couldn't call off your personal phone. You had to use a company phone. Therefore, all of those communications were part of the audit footprint from a compliance and regulatory point of view. What COVID did was now almost rewrite the rules around communication for employees, because it is very difficult to not leverage your personal device when you're working from home to communicate with a client. What Twilio is able to do, and what we've been doing for many customers in areas like retail banking, where relationship bankers are actively engaging with customers and now currently cannot meet with them, or in wealth management, where advisors used to meet with their customers, their private bank clientele, but now no longer can. We provide the ability to have a way for those employees to use text messaging as well as their phone, but in a compliant manner, such that all of those communications are connected into the compliance network of the organization. And so now all of those are not only monitored in real time by the organization, but it's also then archived for whatever period of time it's regulatorily required.
Again, that's a great example, because as you said, nobody could really plan or did plan ahead for the kind of crisis where within a matter of days, in some cases, the workforce was working remotely.
That's right.
Great.
Another,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say another area similar to that. I mean, it's sort of like a post-COVID realization was, well, if I can't meet with my client, how can I build that personal relationship? Right? And that client could be an individual, it could be a small business, it could also be a major corporate. And so what ended up happening was a lot of companies started coming to us and saying, well, there's a variety of video-based tools that are out there. However, those are standalone tools. They're, again, not connected to our compliance network. So if I have an advisor or a relationship that decides to spin up a WebEx on their own or a Zoom on their own, how am I able to, as a company, monitor that, archive that, should there be any issues down the road? And so a lot of organizations started coming to us in particular and asking for our video APIs. So now we can embed a video API into that organization's proprietary website or platform, such that the employee can then send a link to their client. The client clicks on the link, they get a very sort of typical sort of web-based experience of videoing, but that is powered by Twilio inside that company's platform. Most importantly, thereby giving connectivity to compliance and regulatory recording purposes.
Great. Thanks for that, Bijan. And shifting focus for a moment, you and the team will be joining us for FTT Virtual North America on the 9th of September.
Right.
And you in particular will be joining a session looking at innovating financial wellness.
Yes.
And I wondered if you could share with us a little bit about the ways in which that you think that Twilio and the products and services that you offer can help support that objective of securing greater financial wellness for individuals.
Yeah, so this is an area that has always been a focus for Twilio, working with traditional organizations that are trying to help build credit profiles of their customers, as well as some of the new challenger institutions that also have a focus on financial wellness. Some of the tools that Twilio offers can really help along that way. So think about alerts and notifications that we talked about earlier. Helping to prompt a customer that a payment is due, or that there's a special offer that they can avail of themselves. Right, is a fairly traditional approach that you can take. What we're seeing organizations now do is provide educational tips via SMS to customers. Things like 5 ways to save in the current environment, right? Sending them links to their website where there's more details around things like savings plans, things like how to save interest on your loan. Especially in this current economic environment that we're in, where more and more people are unfortunately in a situation where they may be out of a job, whether it's a temporary furlough basis or a permanent basis. The level of financial anxiety that exists globally is only increasing here in the near term. And so we're seeing more and more organizations say, we're not going to necessarily look to slap a $30 a month fine on someone because they couldn't make a payment. We'd rather figure out a way to work with that individual, help them chart a better course for themselves financially. And tools like SMS, even video, right? Being able to have a conversation with a customer can all be done leveraging Twilio products. And as we know, as consumers with perhaps traditional banks, you rarely get a text from a bank other than a payment reminder, right? And so what you're going to start to see for a certain tier of organizations is that they're going to want to start to build conversations with their customers. And those conversations are not going to be about what the bank wants to sell. It's going to be about what's in the best interest of that individual. And with Twilio products, you can micro target those messages if you so desire.
I really like the way that you frame that, Bijan, because it's about that communication with customers, whether it's alerts, which, letting them know, for example, that they might be going, into their overdraft, or just taking that proactive, step of having a conversation with customers who are clearly, as you said, operating in a very, very difficult environment in many cases.
That's right. Yeah.
Great. Well, I look forward to hearing more from you and your fellow panelists on the 9th of September as you talk more about how we can support greater financial wellness. And I just wanted to thank you again for taking the time to speak to us today.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa. I'm very much looking forward to the 9th as well.
Great. Thanks, Bijan.